Welcome back to another episode of Have Game Will Travel. I'm your host, Bennett Newsome, also known as Damn It Bennett out in the gaming community. But as the director of esports growth and development at Full Sail University, I'm super passionate about exploring the diverse world of esports and gaming beyond just skill levels. So whether you're a first-time listener or a returning fan, we're excited to have you on this journey and kind of going through the virtual world and the experiences of industry professionals. So get ready to engage with our guests and learn from their perspectives. Remember to submit your questions in chat and we'll get them featured here on the show. But let's sit back, enjoy the ride as we kick off another episode of Have Game Will Travel with my buddy HellOnPaws. Yo, Jason, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing? What is going on? How's your day going today so far?
Oh, we're chilling. We're fresh off a nap, so we're good there.
I like that.
Well rested.
It's like very important nap things, right? Like these are important things in these days, right?
I wanted to be 100% energized for my time with Bennett, so we are here. We are rocking. Otherwise, just the standard. I sent some emails and didn't get responses, which is part of the course.
That's how it goes.
Otherwise, yeah, we're here, man.
Well, awesome. Well, go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself real quick to the show. Tell them who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into all things HellOnPaws here.
Absolutely. So Jason Clark, quick little background is I was in the military, then I went to college, got my bachelor's in political science. It's something I could just had to write and yap, nothing too hard, obviously. And I got my master's in education and really kind of leaned into ed tech, got into esports by doing high school esports, married a total amazing smoke show babe of a wife who then drug me around the country because she makes way more than I'll ever make in my life. And so I got to experience broader different states of esports. I was a collegiate director for a while, and then 2 years ago we saw and felt there was a need for fighting games, and so we kind of just jumped into that, and now I run Collegiate Fighting Games Conference.
That is awesome. So yeah, I mean, that is a big part of the esports world is fighting games, right? Obviously here in Florida, we're very familiar with CEO and all of the different things that go on here in our neck of the woods. But tell us kind of what inspired you to create the Collegiate Fighting Game Conference.
Yeah, so it kind of came back. I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to fighting games because I played a little bit as a kid. I'm what we refer to as an old head, right? Like I'm in my upper 30s. But then I didn't play much afterwards. But my real passion for discovering kind of the impact that gaming can have in education was when I started the high school program.
Yeah.
That was back in 2018. And we had 100 plus kids come out for that. And 80 some odd of those kids didn't do anything else in the school, right? They didn't have any other connect. They didn't do clubs or sports or anything. And one of my my favorite stories on that was when the kids were they came at me like it was like the Jets and the Sharks moment when they came up like snapping their fingers at me.
Over this.
And they said, "Hey, we want to get together and name the team." And I'm like, "What do you little nerds talk about naming a team?" And they were like, "Well, if we're gonna be a team, we want to have a team name." And I was like, "Guys, we're the Red Devil. That's our school mascot. Like we already have a team name." And that's when it clicked. Like, oh, this was a school thing because they just hadn't been connected that way, right? Yeah. And so it was then that first semester when we were like doing like a survey, like what games would be kids be interested in, that sort of thing. And it was all like the traditional stuff like Rocket League, Fortnite, that cool, whatever. And I had a few outliers that were like, "Hey, is there anything for like Mortal Kombat?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Not really, man. You can play Smash, right?" And that became a trend each semester from then on up until, like I said, we started this back in 23. So for 5 years, every semester I was involved, there were kids asking for fighting games, and it was like, you can do Smash. And it was like that spring of 23 where someone said like, "Hey, is there anything for fighting games?" And I'm not going to say the full quote, but I was like, "Hey, F it, man, let's build something." Right.
Right.
And that was it. Is because we saw like there was this need, there's desire for fighting games, and no one was really doing it. There were offshoots here and there.
Yeah.
Right? But no one that was trying to build like a sustainable long-term thing where these kids knew they had a place. And it also became a whole issue of like accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Like you start talking about money in like scholarships and all that cool stuff, and these kids weren't having those opportunities.
Yeah,
And when you look at the fighting games community, it's like the most diverse. Like this
absolutely.
semester, we're 69%, like 69.8% non-white is the best way to say it, I guess. The rest are all like underrepresented or marginalized genders,
Yeah,
right? And so those kids weren't getting the same opportunities as like the mainline games. And so we were like, well, hey, like let's let's try it. Let's see what happens. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but let's try it. Let's build something no one else is doing it. Let's see what this looks like. And so that's kind of what the passion came from, was there's a need for students that see the need, who want it. And hey, what else am I doing with my time, right?
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool though. And I think that one of the important things that you said there was that the door wasn't open for those students, right? Like talking about scholarships and the future of a better life, being able to go to college and take advantage of what is happening in the esports world. It wasn't really there for fighting game kids, right? And so this is a huge deal, opening that door and building that path, which is really cool. So obviously founding the conference, from inception to where it is now, what has like been the biggest change that you have seen as the conference has evolved?
I would say acceptance,
Yeah.
right? Because when we first started, and I was hitting up like my network of collegiate and high school folks of like, hey, like, why isn't there anything for fighting games, right? Like, I was kind of doing like a case study, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was just like, no, no one's ever gonna really accept it, right? And my comeback was always like, well, people accept Call of Duty now, right? Like
Yeah.
they accept CS:GO, they accept all that. That's not too cartoony, and they just couldn't get it past their head. And part of me understands what they were saying, was that like it's real hard to be like, hey, we have a Mortal Kombat team, and there is a fatality where someone's
Yeah.
getting their chest ripped out,
Yeah.
and having like the Florida State logo on that, right?
Right.
I can imagine being a college admin and being like, maybe that's not what we want, right?
Right.
But it doesn't mean that's the only game, right? That's
Right.
not. There were plenty of others that were fine. And so a lot of it came from just acceptance, and I think a lot of people's hands were forced by the students themselves, because they were like, "Hey, this is what I play. This is what I want to do." Um, and so they were just like, "We're just gonna do it." Because when we started, a large number of our player base was just individual students who were
Yeah.
like, "There's no home for me on my college team. There's no club for me at the school I'm at because it's smaller." Like Florida's a little different, right? There's FGC clubs at like every college. Like the FGC scene in Florida is insane. But like when you get to like, rural Nebraska, right? Like FGC clubs aren't really a thing. So we had a lot of individuals. And I think that's when you start to see directors open their eyes and be like, well, hey, like a lot of my program exists because I have to recruit. And so this is a whole other, this is now 4 or 5 more titles I can recruit for
Yeah.
and get players in. And that was part of our challenge, was we need to get CFGC somewhere to where if you're a director, you can go, okay, if I recruit a kid, I have a home for him for 4 years.
Yep.
Right. And I think that in that 2 years that we're now into our 5th season, I think that's where we've grown a lot, is the accept people have accepted it, and they now are kind of trusting that like, hey, this will be a thing, right? This is something I can recruit, that in a year I don't have to tell a kid there's no home for you anymore,
Yeah.
that these guys are in it to win it for the long term. So I think that's probably the biggest thing in general.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's huge too. And I like what you said there too about like directors are looking for recruitment, and there's so many colleges out there that have different initiatives, right? Some are very focused on like their entire job as a director of esports at their university is to recruit students.
Right.
And so that means they're reaching out to students, trying to bring in talent. And then there's some other schools that are like, hey, we're here to win, and they are full riding, like students all the way. And then there's others that are like, hey, we wanna have you here. We want you to be part of this community, and wherever that goes, it goes, right? And so there's
Right.
always a different blend of reasons that students have opportunities. And if you're the top talent out there, like there's a place for you, right? And if hey, I'm competitive and I'm pretty good, there's probably a place for you too, which I think is such an important thing that students that are in these games get a chance to see. So that's huge. I really do like that. What sort of things does like CFGC empower students to create opportunities for growth? Like what sort of things are you guys doing as an organization to give those students those opportunities?
Yeah, so one of the things that we try to focus on, and I think what kind of has like really helped us build what we are is the FGC, right? Fighting games community is really focusing on that community aspect, right? The competition obviously is like the core foundation. That's what brings everybody together.
Absolutely.
But the community is what like ties it, what keeps them together, right? And so a lot of our thinking, Albie and I's, was like, hey, like how do we serve a community versus just serving a tournament up, right? And so a lot of it is we're trying to get to a point where I don't want to say student run because it's still
Yeah.
going to be a lot on Albie and I's shoulders because as I say we're the adults in the
Yep.
room, right? But like giving them plenty of opportunity to like get in there and get their hands dirty is what they want to do. Like we have a few students right now that like they want to be directors in the space,
Yeah.
and so we drag them along to all of our board meetings, our admin meetings, partnership meetings. We get them all in there and then give them time to have a voice in it as well. Another thing is we started our competition council, which we didn't just limit to like directors, right?
Right.
A lot of those are directors because the fighting games are still so spread out. Is you have team captains who are acting as like they're running their fighting game show at their school, right? You have club leaders who fighting games doesn't exist without them. So our competition councils, we call our combo council, is spread across
I like that, by
from
the way.
direct.
That's pretty awesome.
That's I got to give full credit to Albie on that one.
Yeah.
Albie Fred he hit that one with it. So but yeah, it spreads all the way across from like directors who run their giant programs all the way to like, hey, we're a group of 5 kids who got a club together, right? And it gives anyone an opportunity to have a voice. The other thing we're doing is trying to get into their heads that like you're not only just here to compete, right?
Right.
Is you're actually building. You're all going to college for whatever you're doing. So let's say like one of the more popular ones, and I always call them little nerds for this because I'm the one that has to go through like to see if they're full time or not, and I see the classes they're taking, and I'm like, you guys are the nerdiest kids that have ever existed, right? Because they're all taking like computer science and stuff. I'm like, you'll
Yeah.
all 100% make more than me, but you're a bunch of little nerds. But they but I that going through those lists made me realize that like we have kids all across the country who are doing similar degrees. So y'all are building a network, a professional network already. You don't even realize
Yeah.
that in 5 years when you're on your job hunt or you're on your grind or you're saying, hey, I'm at a place I don't want to be professionally, you now have a network of 50, 100, whatever that you can start reaching out to, right? So we're starting like what we call like our CFGC alumni program,
Oh, okay.
where it's like it's a whole other Discord where you can come in and mainly it's like, hey, I can still compete, right? I can still jump in here and have fun. We're gonna do community tournaments with it, whatever. But in reality, it's to keep them connected, so that way when they get to their professional fields for computer science or whatever they're going for, now they have a professional network that they can reach out to that they developed not just through like their career paths in college, but through this little like we played Tekken a bunch together. I know this person, right? So there's just some of the ways, and we're always brainstorming of trying to get through, but really it's just empowering students in some kind of decision making, getting them in roles that they want to experience themselves. And then for those kids that necessarily don't want to go into esports or go into the tournament side of things, that really just want to chase down their careers, but do this for the fun on the
Yeah.
side of giving them value into it as well, right? Of trying to, hey, your professional networks are here. And then we even talked too of like, hey, let's start having sessions next fall where we have someone that's like not necessarily a recruiter, but an experienced person within the computer science field or within education or whatever, and just have like an open session within Discords. They can come ask questions, right? Because I know the schools do that a lot, but like we can do it too, right? It's all about strengthening and broadening
Yeah.
those connections out. So.
And it sounds like you're already doing a lot. I mean, bringing students into the meetings, into the production stuff, all of the things that you're talking about, like that is real world experience. You get to come down to Florida and tour around campus here with us last end of last year. I don't want to say it was, but that's a huge part of what we do is like always thinking about like, okay, how can we get the students in and their hands on the gear and working and experiencing like the real aspect of this. And so for you guys to be doing that, bringing these students into those opportunities and providing that's a huge deal. Obviously challenges, things like that, pop up all the time when you're starting something new and you're innovating. What have been some of kind of like your biggest challenges that you faced when building and obviously expanding the CFGC?
So honestly, the one that sticks out right off the rip, and it still gives me kind of like nightmares on it, is I when we started, I was working full time. I was a teacher full time, and so I would go to work. I'd get off at 4. I'd fight traffic to get home. I still had lesson planning and grading to do, right?
Yeah.
And then the only way we knew how to do it at the time was like, hey, let's just run a bracket each night, right?
Yep.
Like Tampa never sleeps, and something you would experience if you went to like an in person was we would run a bracket. Well, brackets take freaking forever, man. Um, and so we would come home, Albie and I, from his job, from my job, have an hour or two, and then immediately work till midnight again, right? Running a bracket, and then get up at 6 and go to work the next day, and that was 4 days a week. And then also with that too is when you run like a if you watch like for example Tampa Never Sleeps Tekken, right? You're gonna see a guy named Joe Crush win it a lot, and it's because he's good. That's what he does, and people enjoy playing him. We were experiencing the same things on the collegiate side. Was when we run that bracket once a week for say Tekken or for Street Fighter, is a lot of the same kids were in that top 2, top 3,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And you had the kids that didn't have the experience or were maybe just getting into it who were like they were 1 or 2 or done, right? So it wasn't a huge experience. Like, what was their draw to stay involved, or they're
Right.
just going to jump in and get knocked out really quick? And so it was like, well, we can run multiple brackets, but it's like, man, there's 2 of us just sweat equity in this through, right?
Yeah.
So how do we keep doing this? And so then after that, once we kind of got into the spring season, we met up with a guy named Dr. Curtis Holman, who was out of St. Cloud University in Minnesota. And he does something like super like supply chain management, like some algorithm math stuff that my brain does not have the bandwidth to understand.
Right.
But his doctoral thesis, and he went to Purdue. His doctoral thesis was in like Tekken subgame theory and analytics.
Okay.
Like he literally became a doctor in Tekken. Uh,
That's
and
awesome.
so he had some big brain ideas of like, hey, if you guys do it where we do an ELO based system where it becomes a modified snake format, which think of like soccer Premier League, where like, hey, you won this week, you're going to go up to the next level,
Right.
or you're the bottom of the this week, so you're going down to the bottom to the level down. So after 4 weeks of seeding, that kind of gets you within your similar competition, right? And so what that allowed us to do was we could run one tournament with all skill levels, and after seeding's done, it gives them a chance to then be within like their competing areas. So think about like NACE and NACC have like their
Right.
tier 1 down through 10. It's that, but it's within the same bracket.
Okay.
Right?
Cool.
And so what that allowed us to do is start running pools. And so then we could just be like, hey, we still want to stream everything like we were before, but now we can just do a fight card. So, hey, we're going to stream from 7 to 9. We'll put 6 or 7 on the fight card. The rest of you are going to play out your pools. And so that really helped us time-wise, because then we weren't grinding until midnight. More kids are getting more opportunities to compete with kids with their skill bracket. And people were able to find success there, being like, hey, I was in the 25th pool and I didn't make it to the top 16, but I ended in like the 16th pool, right? And so going to that format, and it also allowed us to do like a seasonal type thing where we didn't have to be like every week was its own thing. Was then we could go like, hey, we're gonna have 10 weeks of a season. You're gonna grind to try to get the top 16. And so that was, for one, that was a lot of time saving, right? And when you have 2 guys who are working full-time jobs who are trying to run a collegiate conference or 4 different titles,
Yeah.
like that becomes a huge thing, because then you actually have time to like, hey, we can start like actually networking. We can start working on our stream. We can start doing like trying to find partnerships. We can do all that cool stuff that before we didn't have the time. And with Dr. Holman's system of like, he set up like a full like it's a legit elo system where you start at 1,000 and you grind up and down depending on the strength of the person you play. And he showed me the back end of it once, and I was like, brother, like I enjoy like learning about programming, but that's a whole nother level.
Yeah,
Like
that's the foreign language.
so that was probably the biggest challenge, was like figuring out from the start of like, this isn't sustainable. How do we get it sustainable?
Right.
Of the competition side. So
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, to think about some of the knowledge that someone's going to put together to bring that type of an algorithm to light and it really work out is really cool. I do want to take a quick break because I told my good friend Jen that I was going to ask this question right at the beginning and I totally forgot. Jen wants to know, what is HellOnPaws and where does this name come from?
Oh man, do you want the deep explanation or do you want like the fun one?
Well, I
Um,
will take whatever one you want to give me.
so HellOnPaws comes back from I was in the military, obviously, and when
Yep.
I got out, I dealt with a lot of hardships because I have TBI and post traumatic stress and that sort of thing. And I didn't know how to cope with it, so I was dealing with a lot of stuff through like alcohol, and I ended up homeless and living in the woods for literally like a year and a half, and it was really rough.
Yeah.
But then some Vietnam veterans helped me like get into the VA system and all that cool stuff, and I started college. And my aunt had read somewhere that like dogs like help veterans,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So she got me this puppy. He's 8 weeks old, and at first I was like, "Oh, I want a dumb little puppy. I'm doing stuff, right?" Like,
Right.
and the next day I was like, "This is my baby. I will kill for him." And during those times of like the bad times of being homeless and stuff like that, I tried suicide twice, because I was at my lowest. And when I got that dog, literally within days, I was like, I don't trust anyone else to take care of him.
Yeah.
I don't trust anyone else around him, and it kind of like opened up an opportunity to like I don't know, it's kind of weird, like love again, right? To show
Yeah.
empathy and compassion again. And so so it kind of came to like you have like Hell on Wheels, right? Like a
Right.
military term.
Yep.
And then he's my dog. And so between that and then like the two times of like trying to commit suicide, like he put Hell on pause, get it? Like you pause
Yep.
button,
Yep.
and he's on pause. So Hell on pause is where that came from. So.
That's incredible. Yeah. I'm glad that I asked because I did not know. And that's a pretty insane story, man. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
your aunt was able to get you this dog and help you turn things around. That's incredible, man. Like really,
He's
and
still around. He's there
that
sleeping on the couch
he's
right
sleeping
now.
on the couch. I like
Yeah.
that. My dogs are also sleeping on the couch, so they're in good company. So, but I mean, that what a powerful thing, man. I'm a huge dog fan, obviously, as well, and would do anything for him. So I feel you on that one. Okay, back on track. We had to take a break. I want to talk to you about your ambassador program because I feel like something that is a really cool thing. Currently,
Yeah.
one of your ambassadors is Saint Cola. Talk to me a little bit about their mission and what you're hoping that the ambassadors can do, and just kind of the overall ambassador aspect of the CFGC.
Yeah. It's so when we started, like I said, we have hey, we want to find like what's that intersection between collegiate esports and fighting games, right? Because clearly like there was somewhere that there wasn't a connection, right? It
Right.
wasn't meeting up to where it worked. Um and so it was part of that was like how do we merge fighting games into the college esports space, and how do we get the college esports space to recognize fighting games has its own set of needs,
Yeah.
and then also getting each side to recognize that like this can be a real thing, right? And so not only were we trying to get recognition within college esports, we were trying to get recognitions within the fighting games world. And so one of our people that's been along with us for a long time, Bernard Mayfie, goes by Raynex. He's the I can't remember his exact title, but essentially he's a director at Humber in Toronto.
Okay.
Um, and he was like a former like Smash Melee pro, so like he knows all these dudes. He met Ryan and said, "Hey, I'm working on this. You know, here's kind of what I've been up to. I'm helping these guys with the CFGC thing." And Ryan actually, St. Cola actually at the same time was like trying to reach out to like Chicago high schools and colleges, and he was just kind of like blind emailing them, hoping to get responses. And I was like, "Bro, you don't know teachers. Like, you don't know admins. They're not responding to save their lives, right? They got stuff going on." And so he was like, "Well, hey, maybe we can find a common ground, right? Like you have a strong foothold in the FGC, like you're freaking St. Cola, right?
Yeah.
And these guys, like they have a real they know the college esports world pretty well, because Ryan, like he's kind of ingrained with us now, but he's still like if I say like CECC or Esports U or NECC or that kind of stuff, like he just his brain it starts spinning, right?
Right.
It's that stuff that most of us since the last 10 years of natively just kind of grew with this. Newcomers, it's like, okay, there's too much going on here. Um, and so he kind of came into that meet that middle ground of like, hey, we'll help you get connected to schools and help you get connected in the collegiate space, because like as he's trying to grow his career and grow his network, and one of the core tenets of the FGC is that you want to always be growing the
Yeah.
FGC,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of the people in within the FGC, they're my age, right? They're in their 30s, And so when we try to like getting the college scene is like, hey, this is a great way to de-age your population, get them in now, so that way they start like learning what the FGC is about, so then they can do the same thing, right? And so that was our meetup with Ryan. Was, hey man, we'll help you get connected to the college scene, the high school scene. We'll help you get connected in your community more because we know some folks, and you help us get better connected into the FGC, right?
Yeah.
Because I went to Combo Breaker last year, a year and a half ago. Yeah, last year. Yeah, last year, and there was a mix of people that were like hype, like, oh, CFGC is awesome. I'm
Yeah.
super excited to hear it. And I'm like, and they're, it's so weird when people talk to me like that, because I'm like, bro, I'm just a teacher, bro. Like, I'm just trying to do a cool thing, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then the flip side, there were so many people that were like, don't burn us. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like, people keep coming trying to take money. And I'm like, brother, if there's no money to be made here, like,
Right.
I'm the one spending money. So we, so that was fun. One of the guys actually did that like gave me like a 30-minute rundown of like, take care of this community, don't burn it, don't do this. There's a guy named Eli the Curry who's on our combo counselor now, so I like to think we like kind of won him over a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
But that was part of like Ryan's ambassador program, was like, hey, college esports and college fighting games are a real thing. I've talked to these guys, I've been around these guys, I see the work they're doing, I'm willing to vouch for them and get them in here. And then we did the same thing on the other side, right? Like, Esports U is looking for people to help with street fighting, and we're like, this is your guy, right? This is your host. Like, this is the guy that's going to connect both worlds for you. And so that's kind of what the ambassador program was about, right? Of trying to like, how do we get intertwined with both sides of this world? And then now, like, we're looking at like, hey, so we have an awesome caster, we have a good face, we have that. Like,
Yeah.
Ryan's awesome. So now, like, probably our next step will be looking at like an actual player, because that's one of the other things is like, that's part of the whole thing, right?
Right.
Competition. And so getting a player to buy in and be like, hey man, this is a really cool thing you're doing. I want to help these players grow and change as well. And I want to like, if coach or advice or mentor into the competition side, because we want our players too to not just be like, hey, I'm just hanging out in Lincoln, Nebraska, but like, hey, there's locals around you. Go get in with them, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
go to these big like regionals, and just because fighting games are different from the most, like Rainbow Six just had their big thing, and it was like all pro teams, right? And it's a really
Right.
cool experience to go do and see. But like, if you're just a Rainbow Six player, you can't just go jump in, right? Whereas all of like these Combo Breaker, Texas Showdown, all of those East Coast Throwdown, anyone can sign up and just get in the pools, and you might be next to a pro player and
Yeah.
get absolutely washed, but you had that opportunity, right? Or like, you get the pride of saying, hey, I made it out of pools. And so getting our players into that, and some of them do really well. Like, we had some kids that were like top 17 at Evo last year out of like 4,000, right?
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
then they come back and they beat up on the kids that don't have those opportunities yet. But that's kind of the next step, and that's kind of the whole ambassador thing, is just
Yeah.
finding that like that cool middle ground to where we can mutually benefit each other, versus like, we never want to be in a position at CFGC where we're only taking. Like, we want to, it's I said, it's all about growth. So
Yep.
it's, hey, that's cool, you want this from us, but what can we give you, or what can we get back and forth? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that we're all on the same page, like trying to leave the space better
Right.
than we found it. Right. That's always kind of the
Absolutely.
mission. Right. And it seems like you guys are doing that. How do you see, the FGC and specifically what you guys are doing? How unique is that compared to a lot of the other esports communities in the collegiate space?
It's actually really funny. It's something we talk about a lot, because like I said, I've been a collegiate director, I've been a high school director, I've been in like the high school discords and the college discords, and nothing against like what they're doing, but it's purely competition focused, right?
Right.
So if you go into one of the other conferences where they're talking Rocket League, and you see, hey, it's competition day, it's going to be a conversation of like, hey, we start at this time, great, cool, we're cool with that, we'll see you then. And then afterwards they'll be like, hey, GG's,
Yeah.
and that's about the extent of it, right? Whereas one of the core things about the FGC is like smack talk, right? And obviously it's within reason. Like, we don't allow
Right.
anyone to attack like sex, religion, any of that kind of stuff. Mainly, if you're going to smack talk gameplay,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so they'll start out with that, and then they'll yap back and forth throughout their matches. Like, I run stream because again, we're a small operation, and so I'll be looking at Discord and I'll see like the stream chat pop up on Discord, and I'm like, how did you have time to type this in the middle of your match, man? Um, but they always end up as friends, or even if there's like someone just gets absolutely washed, where it's like, hey, I just beat you 5-0 and I took every single game.
Yep.
Then it's like you'll have kids be like, hey, maybe this game isn't for me, and others will jump in and be like, nah, it's for you. Let's play. Let's do a first to 10, right?
Yeah.
We'll just do a first to 10 until you get better. And so there is that like that yapping back and forth, but at the same time, like they are still a part of that community, right? We have matchmaking, and so it's every day there's someone that's like, hey, anyone will run some sets, or hey, I'm trash against this character. Who's good at this character that wants to just beat me up for a while,
Yeah.
right? And then they're always asking for other stuff, right? Like we have a thing for Pokemon, the Pocket right now,
Okay.
where they're sharing their pools, or they're trying to trade, or they're doing that kind of stuff. And the other fun thing is Albie jumps in with them all the time, and so Albie's like our commissioner, right? Like
Yeah.
he runs the tournament, he does that whole side, and every probably 3 or 4 times a week he jumps in and says like, hey, let's run some matches, and I'll see them in a channel together with 3 other of our competitors, just whatever. And sometimes I'll jump in and it's just them yelling at each other.
Yep. Yep.
And so, and I think the difference with the FGC is like, if you look at like Tampa Never Sleeps and like Tong, who runs it, like that's the most approachable man in the world. Like if you see him at like a regional, walk up and talk and he'll talk your ear off, right?
Yeah.
Same with like St. Cola. Like they always joke that like, hey, like, it's meet at 10 at Combo Breaker. Cool. He's going to get there at like 10:15 or 10:20 because his walk over there, he got stopped 100 times, right? And Albie's and I do the same way. Like, if these kids want to play Albie will play them. Albie's been late to a meeting before because some kid talked trash, and he's like, I got to teach him a lesson. And you won't see a commissioner of another league do that, right? They won't jump in, they won't go run, they won't do any of that. I've done it on stream before. I don't play fighting games, man, and they'll be like, I want to take Jason on, and I was like, these kids are taking forever to get into the lobby, so let's run one real quick. And they absolutely smoke me to death, man. But they love it, right? And they talk about it forever. I'm in a situation now where like a kid who's trying to like learn how to stream Mortal Kombat has just been a dude with a camera, and he was like, "Man, I wish I had some overlays. I don't even know how to get them." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, let's make some, dude."
Yeah.
Right? And so we make them because it's again, it's all about the growth. It's all about
Yeah.
like let's strengthen these kids up. And the process for me, like making these overlays for them, wasn't like I just made them and handed them off. It's, hey, here's how I made them, so you know how to do it for yourself next time, right? And so it's all about that community and having a place. And then also and this, I don't know, this might get me in trouble. I think it's really funny that there's other conferences doing fighting games, and we 100% support that. Like we're partnered with NECC to help them do theirs. ECAC does theirs. There's plenty of other ones doing it. But I always find it very humorous when they come to our server to ask questions about it,
Yeah.
or they come to ours to complain about it. And I'm like, go ask them.
Yeah.
Like we don't know them, or like a lot of those people are in our server, so we've kind of just taken now when they ask questions, we just tag the person from that conference. And like,
Yeah.
hey, they got a question for you, man, and they'll answer there, which we love because it's like just strengthen the idea that like we don't want to be the single place for the FGC, but we want to strengthen our community to be like, I don't know what's going on. Can you guys help me? Yes, we can help you, right? And so, and I think that's probably the biggest difference is that, and the reason we found success in general is because we're so focused on community and focused being a part of that community, not just leading that community, that it's helped us build it. Whereas I think the others, it's more like the looking at like college athletics, right? Like, hey, we want to be the Big Ten, or we want to be the SEC or the NCAA. Whereas us, we just want to be another part of the FGC, right?
No, that's great. And I mean, I think for me, that's always been a really cool thing about the fighting game community is that anytime that I ever go to any of these events, I meet people, they're always welcoming. You talked about going up to somebody and them talking your ear off, and it's always been that community. It's always been something that people just really are excited about what they're doing, and the fact that this exists in this capacity, like that is really cool. Obviously, I feel like Albie is a good example of this because he was a student, right? Like he started as a student and then has made his way into being a member of like the company, right?
All right. And that's one of his, like, that's where his passion, his grind comes from, is that he's a Tekken player. He was always a Tekken player. But if he wanted to do college esports, it was, hey, I guess you can do Smash.
Right.
So he
Yep.
started doing Smash. And he's Albie Fresh, right? He's Albie Russell, like he was I think, what was the thing in Florida
This
that was recent?
FETC. I was on a
Yeah.
panel with him. Yeah.
Yeah, he went there and he was walking around with our crowd favorite lug nuts, Jackie, and someone had a booth that said, "Hey, beat our bot in Smash," and he was like, "Okay," and he like cleaned house on it, right? And they were all like, "How'd you do that?" And he's like, "I'm Albie, right? It's what I
Yeah.
do." And so part of that's a lot of his passion and his grind for CFGC comes from that of I would have loved to have been a Tekken player in college. And so now I want to set up the space to where we can have Tekken players in college,
Yeah.
right? And so that we have me, who's just an old dude that loves education and loves, ed tech and technology. And then you have Albie, who, like, and the reason I started it's because of kids like Albie.
Yeah.
And you have Albie who lived it, who is now like, hey, let's do this. Let's grind this together and build something cool. And me trying to, like, get around the idea that, like, hey, you can't call me old all the time, bro. Right?
So what are like the games that you guys are focusing on at the moment?
Yeah, so right now it's Street Fighter, Tekken, Guilty Gear Strive, and Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
And the fun thing about all of those is they all bring their own community,
Yeah.
right? They all have their own area. Like, if you look at like Guilty Gear Strive is a huge online community. Like, that's our number one number because most of our competition is online, right?
Yeah.
And so and they also, like, if you want to talk about marginalized genders, those kids exist there. I haven't figured out why, but like that's their game, right? And then you have the Tekken and Street Fighter players who will talk trash to each other all day because you have very combo based, ground based. We're just going to go back and forth. I have my turn to hit buttons. You have yours.
Yep.
Versus Street Fighter, which is all over the place, right? And then you have Mortal Kombat, which that's a different type of kid, and they're a small community, but they're excited community. I think we're definitely looking down the barrel of like 2XKO, right, when that comes out.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a Riot game.
It's a Riot game, right?
Yeah. It's gonna have people. So that'll probably be there, which leads us to another situation of like right now we're at a spot where we can, I think, successfully run 4 titles. So now we're like, well, how do we add a 5th? And luckily for Mortal Kombat, they have their own community and they want to see it going. So we kind of partner with someone to where they kind of run the Mortal Kombat stuff through us. And then we can pick up another title and have 2 titles in one night. So that'll be cool. That'll be a new experience to take on and
absolutely
probably screw up a bunch at first and then figure it out. So
yeah, and hey, well, I think learning by doing and sometimes by failing is a great way to do it. Like and think getting too heavy on the failing side of things, like it doesn't matter. Like it's I learned I understood that this wasn't the way to go, and now I'm moving forward. And so I think what you guys are doing is huge, and I'm excited to see it expand. Obviously, your background in education, I think, brings a whole other side of this to the table, influences kind of your approach to building this and working with students. What have you seen that like you can identify clearly that has been a huge kind of avenue for you from that educational world to what you're doing now?
the student-centered part,
Yeah.
right? Like we business-wise, our goal right now is we just want to be self-sustaining, right? Like Albie and I don't have a thought in our head that we're going to be millionaires.
Right.
And so if we can get to self-sustaining, that's the goal business-wise, which that allows us to really keep in focus of where we're not doing this to go buy Ferraris. We're doing this because we want these students to have an opportunity. And so every decision we make, everything we push for is what's the best thing with students. Like an example of that right now is like prize pools, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing. And some people believe in like having a big prize pool. Let's give as money to the students as we can. But that goes back, that serves that 5% of the students really well, and the other 95% not so much.
Yep.
Right. And so how do you spread that love around? And then also when you have a big prize pool, like I hate to use this term, but it invites the sharks, right? It invites the people out there are just wanting the money. It invites and like I said, I'm not going to single anyone out, but it invites those that like our purpose in life is to win these big prize pools. So we're going to get the best people in the world to do that. whereas we want to stay focused on the student athlete,
Right.
focus on it, right? Of like, hey, most of our kids are going to school, they're going to work, and then they're playing fighting games, right? It's in that order. Some even do multiple sports. Like we have our guy Luke SFH who's at Carthage, who balances um, school, a job, lacrosse,
Oh wow.
and this, right?
Yeah.
And he's killer at this. Like he's awesome at Street Fighter 6. And he could probably be way 100 times probably making that strive for pro, but he realizes that like, hey, like if I chase that route, then like by 25, like my career is probably a wrap, right?
Yeah.
So he's focused on his education. He's focused on that. And I don't want to see him lose opportunities because someone who's just chasing money showed up,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's that student focus, and part of that comes with the education to the students is if we say, hey, we're not going to be big prize pools, there's obviously a backlash, right? The kids are like, oh, you're taking money out of our pockets. Like, no, we're trying to find a way to spread that money, spread that out so you guys can all have the best experience or get something out of it versus the same like
Yeah.
5% taking that home, right? um and so those are like those student centered decisions that we make that sometimes that like the students don't get that, but I
Yeah.
think that's the joy of being like the adult in the room, right?
Yeah.
Of like helping them kind of understand that and giving them the context and everything. And that's part of the thing is being that transparency is like, here's the decision we came to, here's why we came to that decision. And truly it was focused on a student success. And so by not focusing on like we have to be millionaires out of this or we have to do all that, we're allowed to like focus on making those decisions, right? And I think that's part of the best part of education out of it is we want these students to succeed. And it also puts us in situations too where it's like right now we have a kid and he's not a full-time student anymore, and that was one of our initial requirements. You get to be full-time, right? And we do this case by case basis, but he reached out and said, hey, I can't be full-time next semester, I can only take 2 classes, can I still be involved in some way or fashion?
Yeah.
And I just followed up with, well, why not? Like, what's going on? Are you
Yeah.
comfortable sharing with me what's going on?
That's huge.
And the reality was that like he just had to make money, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't pay his bills and he had to go to the stuff. And I was like, well, I'm not going to take the other thing you enjoy away. I was like, so just compete, man. That's fine, right? And that's a case by case basis. And it's because like in that situation, I can see that like the best thing for that student is to not just keep taking stuff away.
Yeah.
It's let's keep it in your hands, but let's revisit next in the summer to see where we're at in the fall, right? Because we can't do this every time. But I'm gonna get you like we're gonna do our best to work with you. And then there's some that are just like, hey, I just can't do school anymore. I have this going on in my personal life. And it's like, all right, cool. You're not in school. So like, we can't let that much pass.
Right.
But do you want to be a TO? Do you want to be
Yeah.
this? You have this personal thing going in your life. We don't want to kick you away from a community just because you're not paying to go to school. Let's keep you here somehow. Right. We have a lot of that going on. And then we're looking at stuff of like, this is another big one. This is very personal to me is when we were starting CFGC, we talked to someone that had done a lot of like their doctoral research in the HBCUs, and a lot of the history of the HBCUs was they were intentionally left out when the big conferences were developed. So like the Big Ten, the SEC, all of that. So when those conferences were developing, HBCUs were intentionally left out, for racist reasons, right? Um, and so now, and they circled their wagons, right? Like they have their own awesome stuff going on, but they still want to be out and a part of things. And so we're looking down in the fall of like getting to a point where we're going to charge, and that took a lot of decision making too. Of like, hey, we're going to charge for you to compete, but we're going to keep it. Something. My joke was always like, if they can't DoorDash it in a night, then it's too much,
Yeah.
right? So right now we're looking at like $50 a player, and a lot of the kids from programs and stuff they'll be fine, but we still have a lot of individual players, and so we surveyed and we talked and we said like, hey, is this something that you find value that you would pay for, right? And here's the reasons we're asking for money. And once we, again, the transparency, the context, they're all like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get 10 weeks of joy out of this. I'll pay $50, right? Um, there's a few things that are going along with that too, right? Of still being student focused. It's like, we realize there's kids that won't be able to afford that. And so how do we get around that, right? And so now we're looking for partners that like, hey, that can do that, that can pick up the payment for them. But there's also that part of me too that's like, I'm not going to turn anyone away, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's a kid that can't pay or there's no way to pay it, like, cool, bro, you're in. Like I'll pay it for you because I'm paying for most of it anyways. So you're in. And there's also like the HBCU part is that like I'm very adamant that I will never charge an HBCU for anything. And it's because it's like I always talked about if I was in a position of power, like I can't change the world, right?
Yeah.
But I can change what I have control of, and this is something I have control of. And so part of that is like HBCUs have, when it comes to competition, I think they've gone through enough. So my part in that is that we'll never charge an HBCU because we're not going to exclude them for any reason whatsoever,
That's awesome.
right? And so that's one of the things we can do if it's like, hey, we're just trying to be sustainable, but being student focused is our main goal. Is we can make those decisions, right? It doesn't come back to like, well, I don't know how much profit I'm going to have, or we're
Right.
not going to do this. Like, it allows us to keep those student focused minded things in. So
I mean, everything that you've talked about there, I mean, it is just super important from, listening to your students, right? Like, uh,
right,
there being a problem and something has come up, and okay, hey, your first reaction is like, hey, man, what's going on? Let's talk. That's such a big part, and unfortunately, sometimes in this space, hey, my GPA dropped. You're off the team, and that's that. There's no conversation, and to
right,
go in and spend the time to get to know these students is such an important piece of that puzzle, because you really have to support them, right? They have to figure out what's going on in their life and listen to what the situation is and how can we provide, because this may be the only good thing, like
yeah,
this could be the thing that is keeping them going, and so that's such an important piece. Obviously, that as you're doing that every day, which is huge, but I'm really glad to hear that from you, because I think it's an
yeah,
important piece. You talked about being the adult in the room. Like, it's easy to get lost. Hey, we're playing video games, we're having fun, but like
right,
still being able to take that position of saying, hey, let's talk it through. Like, what's going on, like, and that's tough, because sometimes those conversations are not easy, and
no, they're rough, yeah,
they they are rough. I've had a fair share of them, so it really is great to see that you guys are doing that, and building the foundation, I think, for so many people and opportunities with what you guys are doing. I'm really impressed. Obviously, you've had a unique journey that not most people have. Obviously, being a veteran, going through your experience that you have, and then obviously, working in the education space, from the high school education to the collegiate side. What do you see being the biggest challenges, and that like collegiate and really scholastic esports faces when it comes to the future, and how to move forward, successfully?
yeah. I think it's coming to the realize one, it's fighting the outside forces, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, one of our main goals is to be sustainable and run like, and that means like we run lean. We do like we come up with the money we have to make our system work, and we want to grow. Obviously, that's why we're going to charge that sort of thing. But there's so many outside forces that see that like they esports pops up and it's dollar signs, right? And they want to jump into that, and that comes from everywhere, right? Like that comes from people who've been involved in this space for a semester who become they get on LinkedIn and become influencers with it, right?
Right.
Or they're trying to do their business to business sales and they're trying to convince me that I need what was the last one I got? It was something along the lines of like call answering service. And I'm like, bro, who do you think is calling me? Right? Um, but it's all that, and I hate to use the term grifter, but like they exist, right?
They
And
do.
so,
They do.
and I think like once they kind of get their voice, and then people that aren't involved from the outside see it, that just invites more of it in, right?
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that we need to do is police our own communities, right? The same thing we do with CFGC, right? Like we've had problems, we've had hiccups along the way, we've had kids who have said stuff,
Yep.
and we police our community. Like I said, we don't chase anyone away, but we have those conversations on the good and the bad stuff. And it's the same way like on the broader outside world of, hey, like we want to like there's oh my gosh, this is one of the things we face pretty early on is every semester there's a new league that pops up, right? There's a
Right.
new thing that comes around, and trying to like see through those and see that like, hey, clearly this is someone that's looking for profit right off the rip
Yep.
versus like trying to grow something like grassroots organically. I think that's probably the biggest danger. And I think once we get to the point of wants everyone is student focused versus saying they're student focused. That's something I experienced a lot when I was a teacher, was that like every decision that was ever made was you're doing it for the students. And it's like, yeah, man, we're all here.
Yeah.
Like we're all teachers in this room.
Yeah.
Like none of us joined us because we're going to be billionaires. Like we understand that's why, but like we understand the students. Well, how does this benefit the students, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the student focus. And like it's the same thing you hear everything right now. Like the same reason like when I joined the military, it was why did you join the military? And everyone's answer was America or freedom or something like that, right? And that cuts out the reality of like people who like, hey, I didn't have anything else,
Yeah.
so I joined, right? It's not always about like that one answer thing.
Yeah, it was a door
And
that
so
was open, right? You know.
yeah, 100%. And so getting past that of like, hey, if we develop something in collegiate esports that is truly student focused versus like profit focused, or that like there's money, I get it, it'll come, right? You keep building, money will come. Like if CFGC got to a point one day when it was like it paid my mortgage, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah.
But like that's probably not where it's going, right? So but I think that's the one. That's probably the thing that student centered, student focused. The rest will come if you focus on them, if you focus on your community, if you block out that outside noise, if you block out the people that won't stop emailing you about trying to answer your phones for you. Like
you think they get a clue after like the 7th email that you didn't respond to?
Oh
yeah, but hey, I don't know if you saw this. Maybe got caught in the spam.
Yeah. Or you have celebrities who hit you up and try to get you to pay to have their production company come here to be on their show on Saturday nights. So that was another fun one. I don't want name drops. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
After the stream, we'll find out.
Yeah. But but yeah, I think, like I said, once you block that out and you remember that, like, hey, we exist for student success, then the rest comes, right? And that helps you block out the bad and it helps you open up the good. So,
what advice would you give to students? Because I think that a large part of this is student driven. I mean, at Full Sail, you know, our students were already doing esports before we came along, you know, and we followed them to go, okay, this way, yeah, and yeah, here we are. So like, this is very student driven. What advice do you give to students that are either trying to start something at their school, or they want to participate in this, but their esports offerings don't include what you guys are doing? What sort of advice do you give them to try to provide those opportunities?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're working on now, and this was with our a fan favorite, Jorge Sanchez. He's at Converse now, who was at UNCC before. He was club president of the year. So we're working with him of like, we have a lot of kids who are individuals who are going to end up paying out of pocket. So how do we get them to a spot to where they can fundraise through their school, right? So how do they community build at their school? And Jorge is like the goat at that. So it's, hey man, let's work together and find a way to like, hey, how can we get students the knowledge that they need to build a club at their school? So that way they can realize, hey, I can fundraise through my school. And essentially, I hate even phrasing it like this, but it's the best way to get through them sometimes, is like, you can have your school act as like your org, right? You can have the school be, and we have a few pro players that like, they're trying to grind out money while going to college. And I'm like, why aren't you leveraging your school for that? Right.
Yeah.
Like, and so that part of working with Jorge is that of him developing a system. So that way we have just a platform of advice we can provide to those kids. Right. The other one is always try to find something that aligns with your views, right? That aligns with who you are and what your goals are. And the advice I always give with that is there has to be give and take, right? Like nothing's ever going to be 100% perfect with you. So where do you find those ways that you can ethically and like in a good way find the give and take, right? And so like we had that conversation with our intern and Bernard, and that was his thing of like his finding success of being a director was he has a trillion ideas, right? He can go off and try to like, he can recruit people right now to win championships, but does that align with what the school's goals are as well? And so how does he align his goals with theirs to find a common ground to where they both can feel success, right? And I think that's the thing with any job too, is like, how do you find something that, hey, this aligns with what I want to do versus what the school or organization wants to do, or even like founding something like CFGC.
Yeah.
We had people that were involved with CFGC at the start that after a short period of time, we realized that like, hey, our views aren't aligned on this, right?
Right.
Like you have different goals and outcomes that you want out of this, and admittedly, a lot of that came to money, right? Um, and it was like, well, we're not going to find common ground, so maybe we go our separate ways. And that was the best decision to make, right? It was a hard conversation, but I think it was one we needed.
Yeah.
Um, and then that's when we picked up Albie, because it was like, hey, like, here's our goal, here's our purpose. Do you align with this? And he was like, that's 100% I align with. And once we brought him on, now
I
he's
love
in a
Albie.
position. Yeah, he's the best. Now he's in a position too where like he can shape the growth of this too, right? And I'm in a position where like, hey, it's like we need to find what's our common ground to make this. Like the prize pool thing was a huge thing. Like he kind of he had a mindset of like, like we can't get rid of prize pools. Like that's a huge part of this. And we kind of found a middle ground where like I'm not trying to like take everything away from them.
Right. Yeah.
Here's some of the reasons I'm trying to do, and then some of the ideas he had was way where we were able to come together. And so that's probably the best advice: is find those places of common ground, right? Whether it's an employer, whether it's a job, whether it's a partnership, whether it's anything, and you have to go at it through like with an ounce of empathy, right? Like, hey, this other person also has thoughts and processes and views and a heart and all that kind of stuff. So where do you find that common ground to where you can grow within that system, or grow with that system, or grow that system, right?
I like that. I like that. So we got time for one more question, but before we do that, I did want to give you a moment to tell people how to find you, how to get involved, how to reach out.
Yeah.
Where can they do that? Where can they find you at?
The easiest way is the cfgc.gg. You can find about every link in the world there. You can find where to follow me on there. You can follow, you see our team. You can see our amazing group of like casters. We have a whole talent page where you can see all of them. You can follow Albie. You can see the people like our guy Mark, who is not forward facing with us, but he does all the nerd stuff behind. Like he's been bothering me. We got to do our taxes, right?
Yeah.
So he's without him it doesn't work either. Or right, or another crowd favorite like Tom Screech. Like he's a part of us too, because
Big Screech
again
fan.
yeah, I'm not a business person. He is. So like, hey, like we were working on a partnership thing, and I was going about it a very Midwest way, where I was like, I don't know, whatever you guys kind of want to like help us out with. And Tom's like, give them a number.
Yes.
And so like,
Tell them number.
right. And so like working with that and doing that kind of stuff. And so you can find all those people there. You can find our Twitch page. You can find our YouTube. Everything is on there. And you can learn a little bit about CFGC too while you're there too. So
That's awesome. So this show, Have Game Will Travel, has always been about like that. There's so much more to esports and gaming and all of that than just being like the best at them, right?
right.
So that's where this question lands, because what advice do you have for aspiring commentators, organizers, competitors, content creators, like that are looking to start building and getting involved in not only just collegiate fighting games, but just fighting games in general? What advice do you give to them, and how could they interact with your CFGC?
Yeah, well, CFGC specifically, like, just say hi to any of us, right? Like, just we're always, like I said, the main thing we're focused on is students and community, and so like join a Discord, start talking, start asking, like, hey, I want to get some screen time. Like, we'll find a way to get you involved somehow, right? The same with content creators. Like, if you want to work with us to do some cool stuff, we're always down to do some cool stuff, right? I think in general, it goes back to that. I think one of the coolest parts about like the gaming world and the content world and all of that is it is a giant community, right?
Yep,
You do have some jerks in it. Like there's jerks everywhere, right? They exist,
they exist.
but there's more that are willing to help you than to push you away,
Yep.
right? And so I think doing the reach out and the same thing I talked about earlier, like St. Cola, he was doing that too, of like, hey, I'm just cold emailing people and they're not responding,
Right.
is recognizing that like people are busy, and like build your network, right? Like if you start out like for esports, like for when I started when I started doing anything esports, I just put out a thing. I was doing a high school. I had no network. I had no one. I just put a tweet out that said, "Hey, I want to put some posters of colleges on the wall." And Adam Antor of all people were like, "What if we came down and visited?" Because he was recruiting, because it was like his first
Yeah.
couple years in, right? And I was like, "Brother, it's 6 hours away. And I don't think we're
Oh,
not
he'll
even
go.
we haven't even competed in a match yet." And he was like, "Oh no, we'll come." and it was him and Chris Bilski from Michigan State were at Aquinas at the time, and they both came down, and that blew up my network because if I had a question, I could email or ask him, and he would connect me with who I needed to, and then from there it just slowly it grew out, and so that's it. That's lean on your community that you do have, lean on the relationships you have. If someone's not willing to support you, they're probably not a part of the community, right? So that's it, man. That's all it is. Just yap a bunch and I don't know, give as much as you take, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Like, if it's take, uh, the plate dries up, right? But if you're giving
Absolutely.
more than you're taking, that opens up even more opportunities and doors for you. So that's huge. Dude, Jason, man, thank you so much for being here and being a guest on the show. It's been awesome chatting with you. Unfortunately, we have to go, but our next episode will be on March 6th. We're going to have Riley Long, who is the NACE interim executive director, on the show. So it'll be a great show. We're going to have a ton of great questions. But thanks for hanging out. We will see you next time on Have Game Will Travel. Take it easy.